What does real-world success in business actually look like? Welcome to Bearcats Mean Business, the official podcast of the University of Cincinnati's Carl H. Linder College of Business, where inspiring career stories, honest lessons, and fresh business perspectives from the people building impact in the real world come together. Tune in for inspiration, practical business insights, and forward-looking thought leadership on how ambition turns into action. And now, for today's episode. Welcome, Finn. Welcome, Bowen. Thanks you both for being here. Let's start at the beginning. Your upbringing. Would you guys say your upbringing was defined by brotherly love or brotherly shoves?
So definitely brotherly love. I think at this point in our careers, you can't really have the high amount of output and results at this point without it being brotherly love. Like, it kind of speaks for itself with the results. I just think that my relationship with Bo, and I've described this publicly as well, that it's almost like I'm wearing a suit of armor and it feels like I can't lose because I have this super strong relationship. And even if everything went south, even if all our business ventures failed, I would always be able to fall back on the fact that I have the best brotherhood and best relationship with my brother in the world.
Nice.
Awesome. And yeah, exactly the same on this side as well. Finn and I have grown up together. We've done almost everything together since we were little kids. We have a very similar story, very similar background. And just to be able to do this with him and achieve so much together has just been a dream come true, honestly. So,
was the goal always to get into business together?
No, honestly, it's BowFin Capital was something that kind of just happened when we were in New York City. We talked to Stephen Wang and formed that first kind of handshake deal. We needed an LLC to run that transfer through and make that first investment. So Finn and I forming that together was not something we initially planned long term, but something that we just developed on the fly and then something we just kind of ran with and took off.
In regards to our family's company, it never felt like something that we could fall back on. Mm-hmm. Like, even sophomore, junior year of college, it was still like in its upbringing, I should say. Yeah. And we never thought that, like, oh, this is the plan post-grad. But then right before graduation and post-COVID, it did take off. And then we were like, this is the best possible decision we can make, not only for our family, but for our personal careers and just moving forward. Because our dad needed help, our mom needed help. And then it's really just, we want to support them as much as we possibly can. Because you see these stories of, like, there's no succession plan. Founder of a company's working until he's 60 or 70 years old. Right. And we didn't want that to have to be our parents. Like, if they want to work, obviously, yes. And we could absolutely use their help, but we didn't want to feel or have them feel forced to kind of work into their late 60s or 70s.
Yeah, so then the integration to the family business felt more natural for you guys. You haven't felt like, all right, even after we graduate, we have to do this. It's more like we want to do this.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Cool. So what was your first, like, business or, like, entrepreneurial memory from when you were younger?
So first entrepreneurial memory actually comes from our dad. When we were, like, 10 and 12 years old and Alexy Metals first got founded, he actually took a home equity line of credit out on our house and pretty much risked everything and leveraged everything in his own entrepreneurial path. And he bought a skid of braze scrap. And what brazing scrap is, I can get into brazing a little bit. It's basically a process like welding where you're connecting two parts in a manufacturing process, but instead of fusing those parts together, you're applying a precious metal filler alloy, so like gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. And this skid that he bought happened to be gold, and there was a gold braze ring in between a ceramic and a metal joint. And then he knew that the gold was in there because at his former job, he had sold that gold braze ring into that component. So he took the risk, bought the skid with no plan on how to get the gold out, which was very risky at the time, especially for our family. And then he ultimately did figure out how to chemically refine it back out into pure gold, like pure gold bars, pure gold grain. And that is basically the origin story of Alexy Metals. And Bo and I, being 10 and 12 years old, as he's going on this entrepreneurial path and entrepreneurial journey, we were coming home from school and, like, crushing up these components in our basement, trying to expose the gold braze alloy to later refine back out and be pure. So we just kind of grew up around entrepreneurship. We grew up around our dad having these, like, serious ambitions. Yep. He's been a huge inspiration for us.
100%. What are, like, the overall kind of leadership lessons that you've kind of gotten from your father over the years that you could distill down to, like, just a couple of them that you kind of take with you when you kind of need something to fall back on?
Sure. Yeah, there's so many. We've watched him for years, and we've been around the business from when it first started in our basement all the way to what it is now, which is roughly a $20 million company. So to kind of see that and kind of grow with him and see the steps he took has just been incredible. And one of my key takeaways, since Finn and I manage a lot of the day-to-day at Alexy Metals, is be hard on problems, be soft on people kind of thing. Like, there will be problems, there will be things that come up, you will get frustrated, but it's important to remember not to take out those frustrations on the team, and remember that the problems are what are causing all these frustrations and rifts. It's not the people. So you just got to be easier on your people, and that's something he taught us really early on, because these people are working for you and they're here to help you. So to treat them poorly is just not a good thing to do.
Right. You got to treat them all as part of the solution, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, Northeast Ohio is not too far from Cincinnati, but it's not exactly close. How did you guys end up at Linder and UC?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah,
Go answer this one.
Sure.
Yep.
When I was a senior, I didn't really know where I wanted to go to college. I didn't know what I wanted to study. I was like, is college even for me, kind of thing. Yeah. So what I did is I did a big Ohio tour. So I went to Kent, Bowling Green. I went to Miami, Ohio State. I went to Cincinnati. I went to OU. I did all the big Ohio schools because I wanted to stay in-state kind of thing, in-state tuition and whatnot. And I toured all these schools, and I didn't like BG. I didn't like Miami. Ohio State was like, yeah, we'll let you in, but you got to spend a semester at our Mansfield campus. And I was like, well, no. Came to UC, and I was like, wow, this is incredible. I'm like, the campus is amazing. The people are amazing. Everyone I talked to was really nice, and they really sold this vision of like, this is the school for the future. Like, Next truly does live here, and the people that come through here leave this place and bring something valuable not only to their workplaces but to the world as well. And I'm a big fan of red, white, and black, or those are my colors, so it was a really natural fit. And from the second I came here, my first day in August 2020 to when I left, I had a blast, and all the lessons and friendships I forged here are always with me in my heart. So
yeah. In the 2 years since you guys graduated, what were your main takeaways? I think what are like the main Linder lessons, I guess, that you guys that stick with you in your day-to-day dealings?
Sure.
I would say, and we've actually pitched this and like kind of shared this with some UC classes already when we're guest speaking. I have two really strong examples, but the first one would be like, I think you can go in upward spirals in your life very quickly. And that's what happened to Bo and I. Like, we graduated, we got a article in the News Herald because we were like these brothers that graduated at the same time. Like, how did a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old graduate at the same time? How did they start at their family's business? So we did get like an article feature coming right out of college, which is very rare. And then that article feature was actually read by a state senator named Jerry C. Serino, and he issued us citations as Ohio's finest citizens. And then because we were named Ohio's finest citizens, it was this pressure of like, how do we live up to this award? How do we live up to this honor? And then that was the origin of BowFin Capital and the origin of like, how can we justify this achievement? And that's when we reached out to Dub and ultimately became like podcast guest speakers and economists there in the short term while we were speaking on their podcast, and then ultimately angel investors in the company. So it's like, it's crazy how you can just go on an upward spiral very quickly, but that doesn't happen if you're not working as hard as you possibly can every single day, keeping your mind open to opportunities, and also trying to provide value to other people is like my main takeaway from the whole thing. With our Dub example, we basically reached out to them, and it was a pitch deck that I had done in Linder for Derek Schumann's class, Digital Entrepreneurship, where I was like, literally week before graduation, I was scrolling through Instagram Reels, like just procrastinating, doing an assignment, and I came across this ad for a real startup company, and my project in the class was to do a pitch deck on a real startup company. So the company was called Dub. They were like an innovative stock trading brokerage app where you can copy portfolios of other people or famous investors or famous politicians. So I took them, I did the project for them, got an A+, got a 4.0 GPA in my last semester, and then fast forward to like post Ohio's finest citizens citations, I was scrolling through my MacBook and like literally just deleting files, like deleting Spanish syllabuses and just stuff I didn't need from undergrad, and I came across that pitch deck, and I was like, maybe I should try to send it to someone at Dub, send it to them for free, and I was like, hey, this is a college project that I got an A+ on, like if you guys could use this to get venture funding, absolutely. Me and my brother also have this precious metals background in the brazing and industrial side of precious metals. and one of their portfolios was based around precious metals. And that's how we got the invite to New York City and ultimately the handshake deal to become angel investors. And then when we came back to Cleveland from New York City, our lives were kind of forever changed. So yeah, it's just like you can go on these crazy upward spirals. And if you provide value to people first, like our Dub example where, hey, here's a free pitch deck, here's a social media content, here's venture funding from us, here's unlimited amounts of promotional value, then it's insane how it's reciprocated, and it's insane how these things kind of come back to you in a multitude of ways.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's translate that to like maybe like almost like a mentorship thing for like current students. How would you talk to current students or phrase discussion about like risk and failure and experimentation, given your journey, your father's journey, and sort of box that into something that would be digestible for like current liter students if you were maybe in your next guest lecture for them?
Sure. Yeah, we always, when we're given those presentations, end it with like some key takeaways that we've learned. And one of the things that we've learned and what we pitch to students in these classes is that you have to lead with value. Like you have to come in and provide something, like not just a service, but provide some insights, provide something like maybe they're not seeing, not just in addition to capital. So you got to form almost like a partnership and provide further value than just, hey, we're going to give you some money and then we're going to be hands off. Like when Finn and I got involved with all of our angel investments, it comes with a strategic partnership aspect, and we talk with the founders, give our ideas. If they run with them, great. If not, it's like, well, just let us know if you need help or if you want to bounce some ideas kind of thing. But we always say lead with value. You got to make yourself stand out, and that's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
I would just say the same kind of like upward spiral example. Like everybody in their last semester of college is going through the motions. They're like, the grades really don't matter. I have a job lined up post-grad. Like they don't really care. And I would just tell everybody in class, like, start putting your best foot forward now, because it's unbelievable how fast you can rise and how fast you can move through the ranks. And I would just say, like, as much as you could put into something is what you should be doing. Like our prime example, when it was our last semester, I didn't have to get a straight A semester. Like we had a job lined up at our family's company. We didn't have to get good grades, but it was that decision to get a 4.0 GPA in my last semester that led to me trying on the Derek Schumann project, which ultimately led to Dub. So I would say these school projects and these school examples can turn into real world examples if you put your best foot forward and work as hard as you can. And Derek Schumann was one of the classes that we actually guest spoke in. So I was like pointing at a chair and I was like, I literally sat in that chair less than a year ago. And we've turned this story into all of these successes. So you can do the same if you just try as hard as you possibly can, work hard, and do the right thing.
You just never know, do you?
You just don't know. No, it's crazy.
Let's go back to the family business for a second.
Sure.
How do you resolve disagreements and keep things business and not personal when operating the family business?
In terms of like interacting with our employees or the family dynamic?
Yeah, well, let's touch on that, then the family dynamic after that. Yeah,
Sure. Again, kind of what I said earlier, what Grayson's quote in one of his big lessons is hard on problems, soft on people.
Yeah.
So, we've had a couple of those scenarios where people are having problems or people are frustrated. The work isn't allocated properly, so they raise those concerns. And what Finn and I have tried to build in our tenure is a culture of collaboration and teamwork. Like we're all just helping each other out. If we see someone's overloaded with work, we step in and help. We make sure everybody's helping. There's no one like just kind of sitting around while someone's doing all the work. So we've kind of created a culture where communication is key. If someone's having a problem, we've had a few of these, they can talk to us whenever, call, text, or we can sit down in a one-on-one. We will work together with them and we will identify the problem and help them find a solution. And we've done that a couple times successfully. And a lot of the times it's just, hey man, I'm working really hard and so-and-so isn't doing that much and I kind of need some more help. It's like, all right, we'll talk to them, we'll spread the work out kind of thing. So just a real culture of collaboration and teamwork and helping each other out.
Do you feel like the employees at this point now are comfortable coming to you guys for issues like that?
For sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so is there anything, I'm wondering about past experiences, or is it just growing up in the company or other past experiences that kind of helped you guys get to that point of being able to resolve disagreements like that, I guess, like, peacefully, not to say like anyone do anything crazy, but sort of like smoothly and kind of like professionally?
Sure. I think it's more about just earning the respect of the people that have worked there for longer than Bo and I have. Like, especially coming into the company, like immediately after graduation, we were put in executive roles because it's our family's company. We understand the inner workings of it, but some of these people who were, say, on the production floor are like, oh, those guys don't know what they're doing. Those guys haven't seen the rapid growth. Those guys don't understand how we do this specific job, for example. But me and Bo coming into it knew that we couldn't change too many things at the same time. Like, we were going to make changes, and everybody knew that, but we wanted to do it slow, and we wanted to respect the processes and the things that they were already doing. And then we approached that by basically being like, hey, this is how we currently do it. We understand it, and we respect that this is how you do it, but how can we troubleshoot it and do it better moving forward? So that was kind of the logic there. We did have to earn our respect, too, just based on work ethic from not only the employees at the company, but also the industry as a whole. We did work like 14-hour days. Coming out of college, we worked a 36-hour-long shift where a machine went down, a critical machine, and then once it got turned back on, there was a pile of production jobs that we had to get done, and it was sun up to sunrise until they were all done. So that earned a lot of respect there as well. And then just our own ventures in BowFin Capital and some of the things that we're doing on the side is very easy for people to be like, okay, these guys are serious not only about their career at Alexy Metals, but their career in general.
Yeah, my next question is actually, and you kind of answered it there, was like, did you feel the need to prove yourselves? But it sounded like you didn't even need to do that. You just showed up. And instead of just telling them you're going to do it, you just show up and do it, especially when there's a critical situation happening.
And that's the right way to do it, too.
Yeah.
Like, if you just start talking, then nobody takes you serious. But it's all about rolling up your sleeves and doing the work yourself.
Right. Let's expand the scope of the conversation a little bit. What innovations and disruptions, I guess, maybe to your industry or maybe just business in general, sort of excite you guys, or maybe even concern you a little bit about what's happening in the business world?
Sure. So our industry is very traditional manufacturing. It's slow moving. All of our competitors are multi-million dollar companies, hundreds of millions of dollar companies, or billion-dollar companies. So while they are innovating, they're innovating very slowly. And they don't feel the need to implement modern technologies into their current manufacturing processes or into how they sell these brazing alloys to their customers. So that's really where we've come in and where our dad has come in a lot of ways. Like Bo can touch on some of the innovations with the website and some things like that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. In 2020, Grayson and his team at the time launched an initiative to form the first e-commerce platform in our industry where customers can buy product, braze alloys, even gold and silver we offered at one point. We don't do that anymore, but you could just buy like you're shopping on Amazon. You add it to your cart and check out.
And it's tied to the precious metal markets, which was an innovation that has never been done in our industry before. And there's never been anyone who's experimented with e-commerce either, but it's a very successful, very profitable revenue stream for the company.
Oh, yeah. And not too much work. We just have to update the pricings, make sure the inventory is up to date, and, but we're going to really dial that in. That's a big plan of our future expansion at the end of 2026 and even 2027. We're going to get that up and going, have it be one of our chief revenue builders. So,
when you guys do talk to students and building, I guess, kind of like, and you tell them about the sort of new things are going on in your company with the BowFin Capital, what are some of the questions you guys get in return from them about if they want to sort of emulate your path, or just general advice about kind of like what's like step one? What are some of like the more common responses from like the current students, or like even people that may reach out to you online or whatever it is?
Sure.
Like there's a lot of questions about people's like self-doubt, whether that's starting a company or whether that's like failing at something. And our advice to them if they're in those moments where they're down is like, okay, in those moments you have to flip your thinking and be like, what if I can pull this off? And then it changes the whole conversation of like, oh, I'm down, I can't figure this out, I can't do this, I can't do that. But then you flip it and you're like, what if I'm the guy that can figure this out? And then it's just nothing but up from there. It starts one of those upward spirals of thinking and actual momentum like I was talking about earlier.
And I would say too, like I was involved with a couple clubs and they did goals where you set like, there's an acronym out there I'm forgetting right now, but you do little goals. You don't just say, all right, I'm going to run this marathon. You say, all right, I'm going to start by running 1 mile today. Tomorrow I'll run, maybe try to do 2 or 3. So you start small, and what I would say is don't say I have to be here. Just say I'm going to do this today. I'm going to learn this. I'm going to execute on this. Start small, and little wins contribute to big wins.
Right. So, do you guys recall any like sort of, I guess, hard truth moments from mentors, whether it was, an instructor here, you just mentioned clubs, from maybe it's from your dad or someone in the business about, learning from like hard truth moments, like, hey, maybe someone sat you down like, hey, need you to fix this, and here's what I want you to do. And like, how did you kind of respond to that and sort of take the next step?
Sure.
Interesting question. Unfortunately, no. Like, there's never been like a monumental mentorship moment. Just a bunch of like little bits and pieces of knowledge that we've strung together into this story. But yeah, it's almost now like we don't have any mentors because we've rapidly rose to the level of mentorship ourselves, whether that be giving back to students or like this podcast, for example. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to be asking other people for the answers when you're supposed to be the person with the answers. So I would always recommend mentorship and recommend you go find somebody in a more successful position than yourself. But even like career-wise, we've rose to the level of our current mentors. So it's very hard, and that there's never been like a wake-up call kind of thing from any of these people, because it's like we've always found the right steps forward and we've always figured out how to do the right thing and worked very hard along the process.
Yeah. And, we'd be foolish to not say, like, guys in our industry who have been doing it for, like, 30 years, like our dad, for example, we're not ever going to not take his advice or not ask him about a situation. So, of course, he'll be a mentor in a lot of capacities. And even our sales manager, shout out Mr. Craig Chasteen, wanted to get him in there, was, they have over 35 years of industry experience. So to not take advantage of that would just be foolish on our end. So,
yeah, let's end this with a pitch.
Sure.
For students that are thinking about, maybe they're 17, 16 years old, in maybe a similar position where you were. They're taking their tour of Ohio and they're trying to figure out what school to lock into. What is about Linder that kind of is like the piece of your guys' journey that you think has helped you? And then what would you say to students that are thinking about maybe duplicating that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, when I was a senior, too, I remember I took the ACT a couple times, and I did some training where I had to rewire my brain to be more academically focused and figure out how to solve problems. And I remember coming to Linder, that really clicked with what I did that previous summer. So when I came in, I had that mindset to just succeed and do well, and Linder gave me the tools and the chance to make that happen. Whereas like Ohio State was like, yeah, you're going to have to go spend a semester at Mansfield campus. And UC was like, no, get in here, do what you want to do. We're going to make it happen. And I said, all right. So this was definitely the school. This was the fit. This is the place where, it's on all the posters. Next does live here. And this is where Next is going to thrive.
I just going off of like the next steps, like even for the state of Ohio.
Sure.
I just think Linder itself in the College of Business and UC in general is like a rapidly up and coming university. Yep. It's probably going to be the biggest university in the state of Ohio in a couple of years. It's going to overtake Ohio State is what I would predict.
Absolutely.
And I think Linder is a huge part of that. And just for me and Bo to kind of be a part of that like promotion and be a part of something bigger than ourselves is what drew me to Linder, and that's what kind of inspired us to come back and promote as much as possible, because we did get an immense amount of value from professors here, from students here, from our actual UC education. Like if you go, Bo was marketing major, minor in professional sales, and I was a major in entrepreneurship. And when you combine those two things, you literally have our playbook or blueprint for BowFin Capital, where I can identify startup companies and basically do a valuation on them, and Bo can provide marketing and customer service support, and relationships after we book an angel investment. So it's like this perfect combination for us to kind of showcase our skills we learned at Linder, our skills we learned in our family's business, and our skills that we learned before. So I would obviously stand behind the Linder College of Business and promote 100%. It as much as possible.
Yep.
Well, I appreciate you guys making the trip down here today. Thank you for both for being on Bearcats Mean Business.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Bearcats Mean Business. If today's episode sparked a new idea, challenged your thinking, or helped you see your path a little more clearly, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share the episode with someone in your network. Thanks for being part of the conversation. And remember, real-world success begins here at Linder.